Oh, come on. I'm still working through it.
I see that.
It's still a work. It's a work in progress, and I'm trying to find the cohesive uh, way of getting myself, I guess, live. Taking us live, while also not everyone seeing what's going on in the background.
Oh, I understand. You're new to broadcasting, so you're working things out. I get it.
It's
I
not
get
as
it.
it's not as simple as, like in radio, I just had buttons to push and, phonographs to flip on, things like that. It's buttons and clicks now. It's not I don't have physical buttons
Well, when
anymore.
you're going live across 10 different social platforms, it's complicated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the fact that you even went live on MySpace, hats off to you. That was really impressive. Like you're reaching out to everybody. Well done.
If I cough on air, it's because of you, sir. It's
Oh,
that.
okay.
Welcome everybody to the All About Nothing kind of daily show. I am Bear Gruber, joined by Mr. Bill Kimler, who is the host of Black, White, and Blue in the South, with Dr. Jameel Brooks. The episode 50 released yesterday.
51.
Oh,
51.
did you release 2 episodes this week?
No.
Oh, just
No.
51. Okay,
Episode
so
50 was the
51.
first comeback episode, and
Okay,
51 was our second. So
okay.
we're in the second half of the century now.
I just pay attention to when they come out, and
Yeah.
that's how yeah. Excellent episode,
Thanks.
fantastic. Michael Lair is awesome, and I look forward to the second half of that. Where
Yeah, we're going to try to release that next Wednesday. We're going to accelerate things a bit. The Eagles going to the Super Bowl has wreaked havoc with our recording schedule. So our every other week recording session landed on Super Bowl Sunday. And there's nothing, not even the birth of additional children, that's going to keep me away from watching the Eagles in the Super Bowl.
yeah, I get that. I have experienced that. My last Super Bowl excitement occurred when the Falcons were in the 2017 Super Bowl,
Yeah.
while I was at Epcot having to watch from the side of the lake as the fireworks were going off.
Oh.
So I'm having to watch the Eagles. I'm sorry, I'm having to watch the Falcons play the Patriots on my tablet, my iPad.
Oh.
As it would be, I'd be watching and there'd be a play and I'd be like, yes. And then I'd look up and the firework had already exploded. I was like, yes.
Yeah. Talk about wanting to be anywhere else but there type
that
of
was
moment.
not that was not in the plan.
That's stress. That
In
is
fact,
stress.
in fact,
And it was 2017 streaming technology, which wasn't very good. So I'm
yeah.
assuming that, a lot of he goes back to pass and the screen freezes on you.
So it was pretty decent. I was
Wow.
I was I was exceptionally pleased with. Now I had an iPad that had a cellular connection, so like a 3G cellular
But even
connection.
so, you're at Disney, and with a million people there, it tends to tax those towers. And I mean, I remember reception being pretty bad, internet being spotty.
Yeah,
So, congrats.
yeah. I was fortunate. Now the plan was that so we didn't we never planned on the Falcons being in the Super Bowl while we were at Disney, because like that was one of the things my wife asked me. She said, "Are you sure nothing's going on that week that we'd be concerned about?" I said, "Well, it's the Super Bowl. That's the Super Bowl week, but there's no way the Falcons are going to make it." And then, sure enough,
Yeah.
bam, they're in the Super Bowl. And then as well, we tried to plan around the fireworks because Epcot is really close to the ESPN zone. So I was just going to leave Epcot, go to the ESPN zone, and watch the game. And then I don't know, plans got changed, and I was
What year
forced.
was it that you had the Colts versus Saints in the Super Bowl? It's like
Uh,
2008, 2010, somewhere around there.
that might be right. Let me see.
Well, regardless, I remember I had booked a work trip to Miami because one of our company's customers was headquartered in Miami, and I went down for an IT top to top meeting with their CIO. So I
2010.
booked a flight, had a really hard time getting a hotel. I ended up getting a Red Roof Inn 20 miles away from the headquarters, and it was like $300 a night for a Red Roof Inn. I was like, boy, my Miami prices are nuts. Well, it wasn't until the day of, when it was a Sunday, that I had booked that flight. It was Super Bowl Sunday, and guess where the Super Bowl was?
Miami.
In Miami. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that suddenly explained why there were no hotels anywhere. The Red Roof Inn had like blood on the walls of the room I booked, and it was still $300 a night. And so, yeah, I was catching the Super Bowl at the airport terminals, looking on the screens or whatever at the bars. And yeah, I made a mistake, completely forgot about the Super Bowl that day and traveled into the heart of things. It was
Yeah.
nightmarish.
The Red Roof Inn is definitely the Stanley Hotel of Miami.
Yeah. Good reference. Good
Oh, yeah.
reference.
I was reading
Appreciate that.
Stephen King from the time I was 6. Um,
Yeah.
it's probably my parents shouldn't have allowed that, but they did.
I'll have to tell you sometime about kind of my obsession with Stephen King.
Okay.
Uh, you talk about there's two projects in my life outside of work, and one is politics. Whether it's running for office or chairing a local party or political bill SC, like that's one version of me.
Yeah.
The other version of me is a Stephen King super fan since birth, and every day I'm spending with Stephen King. Every
Oh,
day. When I turned 50, this was like 3 years ago now, over 3 years ago, I said, all right, time for my midlife crisis. What's it going to be? And it was either spend $100,000 or $200,000 and get a sports car, or relive one of the most pleasant memories of growing up. And that for me was Stephen King. I mean, I
okay.
read all his books, even through college and as a young man, recently got back into it, but I decided I'm going to reread every Stephen King book from first date of publication to most recent. I'm going to go through them all, but not only that, I'm going to listen to every podcast about those books and about Stephen King. So there's about 10 podcasts I follow. I'm going to watch every movie related to any Stephen King property, every TV series, everything. Like I'm just obsessed with it.
All right.
So I've created this Stephen King journey plan, and you should see my spreadsheet because I track everything in my life with the spreadsheet. I've got a plan out to the year 2035 that every day I check off another box and I incrementally work my way forward. So I'm now in the midst of my ninth Stephen King book called Wizard and Glass,
Yeah.
part of the Dark Tower
Dark
series.
Tower series.
But every day it's at least 45 minutes to an hour spent on a Stephen King property of some sort, and it's wonderful. I have never been happier.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like the Stephen King the Dark Tower series was absolutely one of my favorite, and like as he was writing those and they were slowly trickling out, Game of Thrones style. Um I think that the it was I don't know, I guess it was just sort of that anticipation. Like I never had that with Game of Thrones. I read the first Game of Thrones book and I was like, well, this is trash.
Oh my
And
gosh, I had the opposite reaction. I had
really,
read that. I'd picked up that book from an airport just because cool cover. This was before the TV series was ever even
yeah,
announced.
yeah.
And I remember reading that on a beach and just be like, oh my God, this is the most amazing story ever. And I got hooked. And I'd read at the time, there were only 4 books that had been published. I guess that's still the case. No, there were 3. Yeah, there were 4 books and a fifth was on the way. Anyhow, I was blown away by it. I was blown away by the story. It was one of the first books that I'd ever read where the main hero is killed at the end
Oh,
unexpectedly.
yeah. Yeah.
Like I never encountered a book that went down that dark path.
When I read the first one and I don't know, the whole time I thought to myself, Stephen King's The Legend of the Red Dragon was or that was the title of that book, right? The Legend of the Red Dragon. Like the one that he dived into fantasy, like it was have you not read that one?
No, 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 no. I know
Oh,
what you're
okay.
talking about. Yeah,
But
Eyes of the Dragon.
Eyes of the Dragon. Um like that one that felt more like a more cohesive book. I mean, don't get me wrong, obviously George R. Martin is a talented writer and he has he there is reason to celebrate him through these TV shows and whatnot, but I don't know, I couldn't get through it. And
I'm
then
going to have to disagree with you vehemently because
you don't think he's
I've
a talented
read
writer?
I read the entire series. He's also published a lot of ancillary books.
Yeah.
There's histories that
Oh,
support
sure.
the background of those novels that read like encyclopedias, and I'm here for it. Like
Oh,
you feel like you're reading a history text, and it's fascinating.
and I don't disagree. I guess I'm more of a traditionalist with, like, art, or Tolkien, and so those are like,
Yeah.
I've seen those done. And then, is there anyone that's going to pick up George R. Martin after his death? Because the dude
Okay, I got a
looks
crazy story to tell you. I'm going to
okay.
pivot, but it ties everything we've been talking about together into one story.
You're going to
So
Dave Chappelle this?
I have a 13-year-old stepdaughter in the house. She has recently gotten her first boyfriend.
Oh Lord.
Absolutely adorable. Cute young guy. He's a football player on the team, but he's very soft spoken, very sweet, very smart. Went out with him and his parents. So my wife and I and the girl and her boyfriend and his parents, we all went out to eat at a local restaurant just to get to know each other. So we're making talk. The parents are lovely, and I'm talking with this kid, and he mentioned that he was reading like the third Dune novel.
Oh
And I had just finished reading like all 23 Dune novels because there's a whole bunch of them. Like
yeah.
Frank Herbert's son continued writing the books after his death, and some were good, some were not. And but it's still, I enjoyed reading this epic 200,000 year journey in science fiction.
Yeah.
So we started to bond over the Dune novels. Then he mentions that he was also a big Lord of the Rings fan. I go, get out of here. I love Lord of the Rings. I've read the series. I've read the Silmarillion. I've read all the movies with Peter Jackson. I think are the best. I dive deep into that lore. I love Lord of the Rings. So we started bonding over that. And then he says, well, Mr. Kimmler, have you ever read Stephen King? I go, get out of here. Get out of here. Because he had just picked up it. And I remember in eighth grade, like bicycling over to Walden Books before they opened on the day it was released, so I could be one of the first to get my copy.
Dang.
So I'm like, this is amazing. And I said to him, I go, I'm gonna ask you another question. He says, you watch the NFL? And he goes, oh yeah. I said, well, who's your favorite NFL team? Barrett, guess what his answer was?
The Falcons.
No. He was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. He's like, Jalen Hurts is my favorite quarterback. I think he's great, man. I was like, stop. You must have been coached.
Yeah, I was
All
gonna
right. You
say.
must have been coached on these
he,
answers.
he got
And
the
and
notes.
and my stepdaughter was like, no, I didn't know any of this stuff either. But you wonder if I wonder if I ever had any influence on her because I came into her life when she was an infant because she doesn't
Okay.
remember me not being there.
Sure.
And because she doesn't talk to me, she's a teenage girl. They don't talk to the men in the house. So not only do I have an influence on her, I found out her first boyfriend is me. Like it's weird. It's like it's a little mini me in almost every way. Barrett, it gets even weirder. So a couple weeks later, we're in the car with my wife and the stepdaughter, and my birthday was coming up in December, and she asked me when my birthday was. And she says, it's December 21st, right? I go, no, it's December 20th. She goes, oh, well, that's my boyfriend's birthday too. We share the same birthday. How freaky is that?
You know, years from now, we're gonna find out that somebody clubbed you over to the head, took you into some sort of a medical facility, and cloned you. And this boyfriend
Yeah,
is this is who that is.
yeah.
That's what we're gonna
I
find
couldn't
out.
believe it. Hey, I got another random story. Hot take. I've been meaning to tell you this for weeks.
Wait,
This
is
is
it?
this is
Okay, okay.
hot take.
I have
The
a note.
the Karate Kid
Okay,
was a trash movie.
for sure.
It horrible, horrible movie, top to bottom. And the subsequent sequels and the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank were even worse. Each one was worse than the last. It is one of the absolute worst series of movies I've ever seen. I rewatched them all recently because I'm prepping to start to watch Cobra Kai because
Okay,
apparently that's like the big thing, and I haven't even watched the first episode. But now that they're wrapping up the 6 or 7 season series, I forget how many seasons it is. I'm gonna binge watch everything because they're short episodes, and I hear people raving about it. So
yeah.
I'm kind of refreshing by watching all the movies. They were horrible. Like I grew up in the 80s. I grew up when the Karate Kid 2 was bigger than Star Wars ever was.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, like these were massive films. Peter Cetera was in my ear 24/7 with the power of love, you know, or glory of love, or whatever that song was. It was just, you couldn't get away from it in the 80s.
Yeah.
Those movies were horrible, from the acting to the dialogue to the cinematography. The plots were thin, the endings were weak, everything about it was terrible. But here's the hot take. In 2010, they remade the Karate Kid with Will Smith's son, Jaden Smith, and Jackie
And
Chan
Jackie Chan.
playing the Mr. Miyagi part. I saw that movie once, and I remember having somewhat favorable views of it. But in rewatching, that might be one of my favorite movies of all time.
Oh, yeah.
That movie was spectacular. They relocated everything to China. Instead of karate, it's kung
Kung
fu.
Fu. Yeah.
But the plot beats are pretty much all the same, right? Uh, Cinematography, music, acting, Jackie Chan playing a very emotional role. I mean, not the Jackie Chan you and I know and love. This was like Academy Award Jackie Chan.
He's extremely talented actor.
Yeah.
Like, outside of the physical acting, he's
And
extremely talented actor.
Jaden Smith's son did a great job. He was, you know, I haven't seen him since, but and I'm surprised for a 10-year-old kid or however old he was really good.
I think I believe that Jaden Smith probably has a career ahead of him, but his parents have got to get out of their way, get out of his
Well,
way.
he's got to be in his mid-20s by now. I mean, remember this
Something
movie
like
was
that.
2010.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's in his mid-20s, and I'm surprised I haven't seen him in anything since, because I would have said, hey, this kid's destined for stardom. The only thing I didn't like so much was how young they made the main characters. Like,
Mm,
you know, you had Ralph Macchio and all that. They were high school kids, right?
right.
It's tough watching a 10-year-old kid get beat up,
Oh,
you know, and be, you know, violently tournaments and kung fu tournaments. And I wish they were just a little older. I mean, he could have been on the younger teen side, but to have 10-year-olds doing it was a little awkward. But other than that, phenomenal movie. So there's my
yeah,
hot take, and I had to get that off my chest. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for allowing me these airwaves to do so. I
I
feel
was
plenty.
we recorded last night with Erica Sampson, who was the
Hey,
candidate, or who was the chair of the Young Democrats, of the Low Country Democrats. And she came on, and we did a whole reaction to the first week of Donald Trump's presidency. That was fun, and Erica Sampson is one of my favorites as far as the Young Democrats, because I have definitely put them in order of favorites. So and they should know that.
well,
And so,
I'll tell Emily Mayer that she has been booted out.
hey, no, I didn't. Emily's one of my favorites too. I'm just saying that some of them that fall below Emily and Erica definitely need to do better. Just as you know, or maybe
I
not
need to know
contact.
who you're talking about, because now you're definitely got some subtweeting going on here.
You know one of those individuals, and he calls and texts way too much. So,
All right, so it's a he. All right, we'll chat offline.
yeah.
I think I know who it is, but I don't want to disparage anybody.
But we recorded last night, and that episode will come out Monday for the public. Members get that on Saturday.
I
Um,
get it on Saturday,
that's right.
and you should too.
I
You
I
need
also
to be a pod, an All About Nothing pod member. It's
I
only $75 a week. You can afford it.
I also get it on Saturday, but I can get it whenever I want. So one of the things that I was going to bring up was the fact that I listened to this last episode of that you all recorded, episode 51. You all recorded that on Sunday, which was plenty of time for you to have listened to our episode that dropped on Saturday. So again, members get access to episodes early. Um, and I didn't hear any mention over the fact that I updated the credits.
Oh, listen, you don't get a pat in the back for doing something you should have done 2 years ago. All
What are
right,
you talking about?
you
That is
don't get
that
credit
is
for not effing up.
there
That's
is
not how this works.
there is only one example in this country of patting yourself on the back for doing something, even if you do a really piss poor job at it. Our president pats himself on the back every single day. I think we should get a little opportunity to pat ourselves on the back for, for fixing something we messed up, because he'll never do that. Um, I did have one that overnight, and this. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but a U.S.
Oh, the
Airlines flight,
tragedy.
yeah, 5342 collided with a U.S. Army helicopter midair on approach to Reagan National Airport. They have found no survivors. There are 64 people on the
Oh my God.
U.S. Airlines flight, and there were 3 personnel on the helicopter. They do have fatalities confirmed. There are hundreds of first responders in the Potomac looking for any survivors. The flight was from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. And so, if you pray, if you, for the obviously, after several hours, I don't think that survivors are probably going to be likely at this point. So, just for the families and friends of the people that are connected to that, and that have, obviously, that are experiencing that now. They're saying that weather wasn't a factor. That the likelihood is that that it was error of the pilots, whether it was the
Yeah, well, I
pilots,
mean,
the
you also
plane.
saw the news that Trump had frozen all hiring of air traffic controllers. So
Yep.
he froze the FAA. He fired the aviation safety
Yep.
board. So he's already dismantled the very guardrails that are meant to protect against these incidents. And I'll tell you what, 10 years ago, this story would have just been a sad tragedy. And, you let the experts go figure out what happened. The Trump presidency and his supporters have conditioned me that everything that goes wrong everywhere is directly a president's fault.
Yeah.
I've now bought into that fact, whether it is a train derailment in Ohio, or a cow farting, knocking a plastic chair over in Nebraska. Everything is the president's fault when it happens. So something like this, where you've already removed a lot of the safety guardrails around our aviation industry, and you put into place. Don't forget, this was a Black Hawk helicopter that
Yeah.
crashed into a commercial airline. When you put a known drunkard in charge of the Pentagon, I say we expect to see more incidents like this throughout our country, because we have a government that is now interested in dismantling itself from the things it's supposed to do, and is more concerned about DEI and CRT and all these buzzwords that have no meaning. That's what they're focused on. You talk about DEI hires. This is the most incompetent administration, top to bottom, cabinet, et cetera. The Secretary of Agriculture, right? We are in the midst of the worst avian flu,
Outbreak.
crisis
Yeah.
in history. Price of eggs is now $10 an egg, and during the hearing in which this candidate for the agriculture position was being interviewed, says that she didn't really know much about the avian flu, and will have to get up to speed. So why is it okay for him to put in all of these unqualified individuals, all these unqualified white individuals, and nobody bats an eye? Yet, the Biden administration had all these highly qualified, educated, experienced, diverse looking individuals, and they're screaming incompetence and DEI. It has boggled my mind. Hey, I went off on a tangent. I'm sorry. We'll
You're
come
good.
back to the tragedy from last night. I just now, yeah, everything is the president's fault now. That's
Yeah.
how it worked, and
Yeah.
it's how it's going to work.
Yeah. Whether gas prices go up or down, egg prices go up or down, the cost of corn could potentially be going up. Vehicles, with all these tariffs, we could see an increase in prices because
I
of
mean, if they're going to say that the LA fires are because there's an LGBTQ fire chief in LA, right? And say, "No, look, that's the reason." Why can't we say that when a military helicopter crashes into a commercial airline, given the actions recently taken by our president that directly correlate with this, why not put the blame there? I don't see how you can have that double standard.
Yeah, I agree. Excuse me. Sorry. Um, I guess the last thing I want to ask you is based on, excuse me, based on the email. I'm gonna have to cough again. I'm sorry. Based on
All
the
I can say
email.
is that when you go off camera like that, I'm not sure you're coughing. I don't know what you're doing, but that doesn't look all up and up.
It's a brutal cough.
I'm
I'll just
sorry
say
to
that
hear
it's a
that.
brutal cough. Um, and now I can't seem to recover. Hold on. I'm just drinking tea. I don't know where this came from. I sat there
Um,
silently while you were talking. Um,
it's highly unprofessional. I
yeah.
can point this out,
At
and
this point, I would have started a song.
I want my money back.
So, the 2.3 million federal employees that received emails
Yeah.
yesterday. You didn't hear about this?
No, I did.
Oh yeah, okay. Those 2.3 million federal employees, some of them will be, I guess, given the opportunity to potentially resign from their positions, so that and they would receive pay and benefits all the way up to September 30th. That's what the email stated. That's what they would get. I am curious. Do you have any, I guess, any words of wisdom for any of these federal employees that have potentially received this email, and what you think that they should do?
Yeah. Oddly enough, it's the same email that Elon Musk sent to his staff when he took over Twitter, right? So it's just go in, slash and burn. And next thing you know, a year later, he's writing another email warning that Twitter is not going to be a profitable organization. So I would expect that once you remove all the people that actually does the work and important stuff suddenly stops getting done, we're going to have a collapse of our government, in critical areas. It's just bound to happen. So I can't imagine what it's like being a federal employee who, maybe for decades had stability in their job. Quite a few people, even in the private industry, can work at the same job for decades. I have. I've worked for the same company, different jobs, but I've worked at the same company for a long time.
Right.
I've never job hopped, so I've enjoyed stability in my career. To all of a sudden be at the whim of a guy who is just completely irrational, I feel for them. I mean, I can't imagine what to do with any. I don't have any advice. What do you do with this email like this? I think they said they have to come back to the office. Was part
Yeah.
of that
Well,
conditions?
that was already in place. There were, in
Yeah,
fact, there were, so some of the things I was reading from people that worked at the CDC, they returned in Atlanta. They returned to the office to find out that there was not enough desk space for all of the CDC employees that were told to return to the office.
right.
So, and
Amazon went through the same thing. Amazon put that return to office mandate. So people started to come back to the office and they found there wasn't enough parking. They
yeah,
had to shuttle people in from a mile away. There weren't desk spaces. There weren't office equipment. Incompetence. Like,
yeah,
how do you issue that mandate and not be prepared for when people actually follow a mandate?
it is, it's kind of like how you put out a memorandum that says that they're going to freeze all federal aid and grants, and then not
Yeah.
really do a good job of describing what federal aid and grants are going to be frozen, because it was all speculation that it was not going. They did put the Medicare and Social Security was not going to be affected.
Well, they said that, but then they still froze the portals
Right, the
and
portals were
health providers
frozen.
couldn't access anything.
I had an exchange with an individual that I thought was an individual, turned out to be just a bot, and wasted a ton of my own time. So I am still not very good at
Was this
determining. It is.
the TikTok account you posted about?
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I didn't. I went back and forth with this lady because I thought it was a lady, and she's telling me, she
Did
said,
you end up
"No,
sending very personal photos to this individual too? Did you go down
no,
that rabbit
no,
hole? Okay.
no, no, no." Fortunately, it got to
Need
the
your
point
credit
where
card info, social security number. What did you do?
after like the seventh or eighth exchange with this individual, because it just constantly came back. She said, "I put out unnecessary information that was just scaring people about Medicaid." And it's like, no, I said the White House was, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, I was like, why am I going back and forth with this person? So I went and pulled them up. No content, but they got 500 some odd followers, and they're following like 300 or something or whatever it was. And I'm like, holy crap, this is one of those bots, or this is somebody that, is in Moscow,
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I guess I for any of these employees that think that they're going to get paid through September to do nothing, it's not going to happen. And if they don't take the deal, they're going to get fired anyway.
Yeah, and would you actually trust them to hold to their word? Yeah, like
No.
yeah, there's an email, but you know that they're going to renege on their promise.
Yeah.
Again, like Musk did with Twitter, he
Yep.
just stopped paying on contracts that he was obligated to pay and just had to be sued into oblivion. And most of these people just don't have the assets to
Right.
file lawsuits against the federal government.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would say hold your ground, don't take that deal. Um, File lawsuits. I don't know, class action. Find somebody to do a class action for you. It's just mismanagement. This is the same president that filed a bunch of bankruptcies
Yeah.
and skated away from any of his financial obligations. And
Including
why did we
multiple
expect?
casinos.
Why did we expect anything different to happen with this guy in charge of the U.S. government? The
Yeah.
only thing was that in his first term, there were enough guardrails around him to prevent a collapse,
Yeah.
despite his greatest intent. Those guardrails are all gone now, and Project 2025 is running wild
Yeah.
through the streets.
This
And
is
we're only a week and a half into it, and we already have planes falling out of the sky.
Yep.
It's just going to continue like this, and we just need to hold strong. Me personally, I have been curtailing my spending, and I'm buckling down. I'm tightening my belt, and hopefully we can collectively get through the next 4 years, where again we'll have to go through the pattern of a Democratic leader
Yep.
cleaning up the mess left by the predecessor, and then getting blamed because it wasn't cleaned up fast enough.
Right.
That's the pattern that we've seen over and over. So I'm here for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bill, as always, a pleasure. We'll
Yeah,
wrap
I,
up.
I know you got choked up a lot. This was a very emotional episode for us today.
My eyes are watering from
I see that.
basically
You're very
coughing on
emotional, very
phlegm.
touching. It's good to see the sensitive side of you.
Oh, I am. I'm very empathetic. I feel bad for, or I feel people's pain and emotion. But this is the result of this disgusting cough, and
Yeah, I'm not feeling any of your pain. I'm just over
yeah.
here laughing on
Don't
the inside.
don't I don't want you to. In the end, I don't want you to. So, all right, that's gonna do it for this kind of daily show. I am Barrett Gruber. You can follow me on social media at Barrett Gruber across all social media. This is Bill Kimler, who you can follow across social media on the all of the social media at Political Bill SC. Also, Bill is the host of Black, White, Blue in the South, which you can listen to everywhere on podcast platforms, as well as YouTube. Now you can watch the video on YouTube. You can find the All About Nothing podcast links at theallaboutnothing.com. I guess that's going to do it.
Yeah, and remember, kids, keep your hands on somebody else.
Everybody, y'all, be good. I don't know why that cracked me up so much.
I don't know.
All right. Very good. That was good. I think we did a really good job on that one too.